Well, we want to thank you for coming out to this first, hopefully annual Bigfoot Town Hall meeting here in Zig Zag. I'm Scott, and I'm with SQUATCHAMERICA.
It seems like everybody at least knows somebody who's had an experience, or it's, you're probably going to think I'm crazy. And about that time, I'm looking for a piece of paper and a pen to start writing stuff down. So, with that being said, whether you yourself have had an experience, or you know somebody who has, would you please be open to sharing that with us? And nobody's going to condemn you for it. We take what we do seriously, confidentially, at least within this room, and we're looking for people to step up and just kind of let us know if you've seen anything in the area or heard anything in the area. So, anybody, raise your hand if you'd like to talk about something you've seen or heard of something somebody you know has seen. Anybody? Got one over here. I don't know how much cord I have, so I have to come up here a little bit, but I appreciate that. We're not trying to put you on the spot, we just, this is stuff that go around.
Hello everyone, my name is Melody, and I grew up in a town called Duford, Oregon.
Yes!
So I'm from Duford.
I know Duford.
My father was an avid hunter, spent summers up in Alaska, and when I was a kid, starting from 3 years old on, my dad would take me out in the woods and show me all different kinds of tracks. How you can tell the weight of an animal by how deep the tracks are. Everything from elk, deer, cougars, mountain lions, bear. I've seen all those things in person. I was up at Pyramid Lake in Oregon. I was about 15 years old. We had hiked to the top of the lake. We did hiking probably every weekend, so it was something we did, numerous times, countless times. And we get up to the top of Pyramid Lake, which is kind of an isolated lake, comes up to a point, it's really hard to get to, there's not a lot of other lakes around it. You could hear frogs and all the different kinds of animals and birds and everything, and all of a sudden, everything goes silent. And the hair stands up on the back of my dad's neck, and he's a hunter, so that's awfully strange. We had a feeling we needed to get the heck out of there. So we hike a mile and a half back down, get in the truck, start driving off. We come around the bend, and there's a hill. It's a dirt and pebble hill. And unfortunately, we didn't have any plasters with us. But in that, on the hill, we thought it was bare first. So we said, oh, there's some huge tracks going up this hill. Let's go check it out. We get out of the truck. We're looking at it. Like we look at all tracks. And it's human-like. And it's huge. And there's no way it's a bear. Because we started walking up this bank. And we maybe made half an inch, maybe an inch. This thing was this deep and had dragged the dirt back with it. So we thought, well, maybe it was a bear and it dragged it back. But the more we looked at it, there was no way that this was a bear. It didn't have the right toe. It looked human, almost. It had 5 toes. And they were all in the front. There was no claw marks, so you didn't see any claws that had come over the top of it. We had wished we had plasters that day. But, I can't say we saw a Bigfoot. But if just being in this group here and listening to your stories, I do think that something strange happened that day. I wish we'd had plasters, because it would have been something that I would have shared with you. So that's my story.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. All right, hoodies, you know who you are. Come on, guys. We brought this to you. This is a rare occasion here up on the mountain. If you know of something, or somebody who's seen something, or you have experienced something yourself, please step forward. Thank you. Right here. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, appreciate it. My name's Chris Vincent. I grew up in Battleground, Washington, so still live fairly close to Vancouver. And of course, anyone that grew up in that area, there's all sorts of stories up in Bell's Mountain and Yakul of Bigfoot up in those areas. Every year, we would go camping up in the Gifford, just outside of Brandon. Had a bunch of lakes up there, and there was one particular lake that we visited quite often. And I remember this. I was 9. I remember that because it was one of the many times I broke my arm, but it was over my birthday. So I remember specifically I was 9 years old. Oh, sorry. I was 9 years old when this happened. So I remember getting to camp. We set up camp, and we were hiking around the camp one day, and my dad kept on pointing out these branches that were pretty thick. And he's like, "That's strange. They're like broken, and they're like broken and twisted." And probably every 100 to 200 feet, we'd see other branches on the same side that were broken. And my dad, anyone that knows Art Bell, around that time, he would listen to Art Bell, but he goes, "That's Bigfoot." I was like, "Whatever, Dad." I'm 9 years old. I'm like, "Whatever, Dad." And we get back to camp, and the next day, I like to fish, so I would go out in the rubber raft, and I would always fish until it gets pretty much dark. And I know that my brothers and sisters and my parents were hiking around the lake again, and I was out fishing all day. And there's this little area in this lake where there's like a cove, and I'm under there fishing, and it's getting pretty dark. And out of nowhere, I hear this blood-curdling roar, and it was very long and loud. And I remember just thinking, I didn't see anything, but I remember looking back. It was close. Whatever it was had to be pretty close. And looking back and trying to see what was there, I reeled up my line as fast as I possibly could, and I made off for camp. Like, I just started rowing as fast as I could. I get to camp, my dad, he's like, "We were on the other side of the lake. Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like, I was right there. So I can't remember if it was that night. It was I'm almost 40 now, so it's a long time ago. And you were how old? Then 9. Yeah, so it was a long time ago. But I remember, I can't remember if it was that night or the next night. I wake up to my dad. Did that mic just go off? Hello? Okay. I woke up the next night to my dad loading his gun. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, "There's coyotes in the camp." And I'm like, "Where are the dogs?" So we had a Malamute and a German Shepherd. And he's like, I put them in the van. And I never heard a thing. I never heard a coyote. I never heard anything. And I remember asking my dad, because I heard somebody else kind of mention a story similar to mine, so I kind of started this year kind of digging in and doing a lot of research myself. And I asked him, I said, "Did you ever see coyotes when you took the dogs out?" He goes, "No, never saw a thing." And I'm like, "Well, how close were they?" "Well, I did you hear them in the camp? Like, do you think that?" He goes, "They were right in our camp." I'm like, "But you didn't see a one." And I just think that seemed really weird to me. And then there was I said, I've never seen one, but I've had experiences where I can't explain what it was. My wife and I got married in 2008, and we were camping up in the Olympics. It was our honeymoon. And we were hiking this particular area. It's an old homestead. And we are going through this kind of area where it's got a lot of leafy trees. I think there were maples. A lot of foliage on the ground and stuff. And we hear this, it sounded like a pig. But there was nothing. There was nobody there. There was nobody up there. There was nobody in the parking lot, like where you could park. There was nobody in that area. There was no houses around, and we just hear this. And I turn around. As soon as I turn around, it stopped. I'm looking, and we take probably maybe like 5 steps. I hear it again. We take and I look, and I stop, and I'm like looking through the trees trying to figure out what was making that noise. It was pretty loud. And we start walking again, and we hear it again. And I just look at my wife, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. Let's just keep moving. And I mentioned it to actually in the museum, Cliff's Museum, and I talked to a couple other people, and they've told me this. I can't tell you what you heard, but they've said that they've heard stories of Bigfoot mimicking pig noises. So, anyways, that's my story.
Anybody at all? Seriously, this is your chance to get it off your chest, or to pass along some information that you may have about somebody else you know who may have seen something. You know, it's not life or death, and it's certainly, you're not going to be made fun of. So if you have anything to share, again, whether it's something you've seen, heard, experienced, or something somebody you know has heard or experienced, raise your hand, come on up. It's just time to talk. I mean, this is our hood, right? All right, Chris is going to be shy for the first time in his life. Anybody else? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Well, I'm going to let you shut it down, but thank you for allowing us this platform.
All right, folks. This is the important niece of the Todd Niece family.
Before I start, yes, I'm from Arkansas, so that accent. I myself have never seen one, but my brother, my nephew, and my mom's brother have all seen one. Within about, probably I'm going to say, a quarter to a half mile of each other. Each one of them was between 12 and 15 years old. And I didn't know until last year or year before last that my mom's brother, who was in his late 70s, had seen one when he was a young teenager. But my brother saw one. He actually was out in we had a bunch of woods behind our house because, yes, I was a country girl. And then we had a power line. Then we had another strip of woods that all the kids in the area called the Spooky Woods. And then we had creek bottoms behind that. So, I heard about my brother's birth. He was somewhere between 12 and 15, and he was out with his friends. And they were playing and running through we had a field with grass about this tall. And he was running through the field, and all of a sudden, a Bigfoot stood up in front of him, about 5 feet from him. And my brother said that he was so shocked that he said this thing stood up and stood up and stood up. And he looked at everything except for the Bigfoot's face. He couldn't bring himself to look at the face. So he's still, to this day, he's 61, and he's a big hunter, a big fisherman, but this affects him so much that he can barely go in the woods because he constantly hears and sees things, and he will tell you that he wishes he had never seen it. Then my nephew was also between 12 and 15, out in the same area, but over by where our neighbor raised cattle. And they were all, as Southern boys do, shooting each other with air guns and BB guns. And he saw something stand up on the other side of the fence. He saw this Bigfoot step over a cattle gate at a cattle guard, and it put his hand on a gate and stepped over it. And my nephew was just, we didn't think about Bigfoot when we were growing up because, and he's 44 now. We didn't think about it. We never heard about it. No movies when we were young. We didn't know. We'd never heard what they are. But he was in so much denial, but he went back the next day where the Bigfoot had put his hand on the cattle gate and stepped over. There was a big dent in the top of the gate where the Bigfoot had stepped over. And then a couple years, I think it was a couple of years ago, I was visiting my uncle, and he said, I need to tell you a story that I haven't told anybody else. He said, he said he couldn't remember, but he also was somewhere between 12 and 15. And this was where we all grew up. Everything from when my grandparents had their kids to my mom still lives there. And he had gone out squirrel hunting, and he was on the power line. And up the power line from where my brother and my nephew saw Bigfoot, and all of these were when they were teenagers, he saw a Bigfoot step out of the woods and onto the power line. So this was all in central Arkansas, just south of Little Rock, and I was told a few years ago that that's the area where there is more Bigfoot sightings and reports than anywhere else in the state of Arkansas. And there are a lot of Bigfoot sightings in Arkansas. So you take 3 boys. One of them is in his late 70s, one is 44, one is 61 or 62, and all around the same age, they saw a Bigfoot almost in the same place. So you might say one was lying, but I would never believe that all 3 members of my family were exaggerating or lying. And these are honest people, and my nephew never spoke of it for years because he thought he was crazy and didn't see what he saw. He tried to convince himself it was a bear or something. But now we go on Bigfoot trips at home. I met Todd at a Bigfoot conference. We go on Bigfoot trips at home, and we've heard tree knocks. We've heard a few whoops. We've never, in the later years, none of us have ever seen them, but this thing is real, and my family knows this for a fact.
All right, anybody else? Hello? Oh, we got one. Here we go. That's talking about what? Hi. 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 My name is
There you go.
Is it working?
Yeah.
But you gotta talk right.
And I'm from down south Denver area. I've had numerous Bigfoot experiences. I was actually a little kid at 7 years old, and I went to a high school in Medford, Oregon. I got to meet Roger Patterson and Bob Keeler. I got to meet Bob a while back to verify that, yeah, I was one of the kids from the high schools. I've had one story I could share with. We had a road crossing a couple of years ago up by Crater Lake. I was going, and his girlfriend, where? And off to the side was a Bigfoot off to the side of the road. It was moving. And it was like Patty, except for it had more tan to its face. As soon as it did the whole look way over, and just looked exactly like Patty, except for it was moving its feet. I've seen probably over 30 tracks out in the woods. I'm an avid mountain biker, downhill racer. I used to race up at Steamboat West. I used to sponsor kids and stuff for mountain biking. I have a little guy that's now grown up. He's 16 years old. He was riding Sandy Ridge. And he's pretty fast now. And he got ahead of his dad, and a Bigfoot crossed the trail. Him and his little buddy come to a screeching halt. His dad goes, what's wrong? And they're pale white. We've seen it, Dad. We've seen it. Don't you see a bear? He said, no, we've seen a Bigfoot. It took
his dad an hour to convince him to go past where this Bigfoot had walked across the trail here on Sandy Ridge. So he's pretty excited about Bigfoot and invited him to come up here, but I guess they were too busy and stuff. But that's one of many of my stories. So thank you very much.